Facility is an organization dedicated to provide support in terms of grants to indigenous peoples in the tropical rainforests of the world, communities and indigenous peoples, so they can get their secure land tenure as they live in and within, around, and surrounding the last remaining forest stands. So if they have their secure land tenure, then they can help protect the area as their own, yeah, and manage them.
Can we define first land tenure? What does it mean for indigenous peoples across the globe?
Yeah, so it is that instrument that shows that they have a legitimate claim and the government has recognized the claim. So it has a map and it has generally the features are that they're very clear boundaries, very clear claimants. So they have self governance and they have applied the law or policy or regulation of the country that recognize their status. So they apply for this land tenure, land rights. Yeah.
So, of course, what are the specific projects of the facility that already done in these areas, and how were you able to resolve the issues of land tenure and also help in the IP communities in these localities?
The different, really, the common projects are recognition. So there are different instruments. So some are in, for example, in the DRC, it's called a kind of a community forest concession, 50 years and then renewable. And that has done is it gave the community now the ability to negotiate the land use, and they develop their land use plans, and they get eligible for projects that the government can then fund. Yeah, because they have a land use plan. In Indonesia, it's social forestry, or it's specifically hutan adat, which is the forests of the customary communities, and those again make them eligible for support. But generally, it is this ability to have an instrument that would then be the basis for coming together at the table and figuring out what would be the potential for sustainable harvesting or sustainable non-timber forest products work. That's the same in joint forest management in India. We use the Forest Rights Act. The same is happening. Yeah, they get their application, the government provides recognition, and then they go into non-timber forest product sale, and it's actually led by women. So it's very interesting what comes out of it.
Interesting. Of course, you already mentioned some challenges on the communities that you serve, but there different challenges in different countries. What are the should we say the main common challenge in the communities that you serve?
It would be actually when the concession is given by the government, either the local or the national government, to an area that is claimed, owned, or even titled to indigenous peoples, and the concession is coming in opposition to the priorities of the local and indigenous peoples. So that happens. When that happens, there has to be a negotiation, and when that happens also, and if there's not negotiation doesn't succeed, they go to court. But most often, the conflicts that really result in losses of businesses is when the land tenure is not clear, right? So the issue when there is land tenure is just negotiation and finding out, how to really come to a common solution. So it's if you weigh the plus and the minus with land tenure available and no land tenure, the plus is always in the having a land tenure. Yeah, yeah.
So, of course, let's talk about funding. How is the facility being funded? Is it mostly by private organizations, private individuals, or public or government organizations? And what are the requirements for these projects to be funded to be funded by the TF?
Yeah, so our money is coming from a combination of government funding and philanthropic funding. So the government funding is allocations for forest management, for climate and nature-based solutions, and those allocations are specific to the forest managers and the guardians of the forest. So that's the part of our funding that can go to indigenous peoples. The other part is from private philanthropies, that care about forest management, nature-based solutions, conservation, and climate adaptation and mitigation. And it's always connected. Anywhere where you are working with nature and people is connected to climate now. Yeah. So those two, and the community can apply. So this is the is important thing with the tenure facility. The money is larger, longer term, and more flexible, and it can only be dedicated to indigenous peoples organizations, local community organizations, and the NGOs that they choose, that they trust. Yeah, so it's very unique in the sense that many of the funding usually goes to in NGOs, and then they work with indigenous peoples, right? So this one, it really goes to indigenous peoples
Directly.
directly,
Directly. To the
directly.
indigenous
Yeah,
people.
yeah, and it's not small; it's quite big. Yeah, from $700,000 to $1 million. Yeah.
Of course, we note that the facility is managing projects, of course, in South America, Africa, parts of Asia. Is there a need to for the facility to provide more projects in other key areas? And are there any countries that are being considered for future projects down the road in the pipeline?
For now, Asia has very few. Yeah, compared to Africa and Latin America. Latin America is the biggest, said almost 50% of our projects, and Africa is coming next. And Asia, there's only three: Indonesia, India, and Nepal. So we're hoping to expand there, especially now in Asia. That's why actually I'm here at the AVPN, so to connect with the private philanthropists, AVPN, and also in partnerships because there are other types of matching funds like yeah, um, blended finance and all of that. But that's still an aspiration. And the idea is that we expand, we get more philanthropic money or funding and governmental bilateral funding to Asia because the indigenous peoples in Asia is the most number, yeah, compared to others.